This kid was powerless and just another target for them. But what he does next will shock you.
The wild follows a strict order where only the strongest survive. Animals are divided into two groups, hunters and the hunted. Hunters have sharp teeth, a gift from nature, while the hunted have fast legs to escape danger. But even the fastest legs are useless when surrounded by a pack. This harsh reality is reflected in the world around us, though animals only hunt for survival. The scene shifts to a boy lying on the classroom floor, tears in his eyes. His nose bleeds as he feels worthless. A group of boys stands around him, laughing and telling him to get up. They're the ones who did this to him. Their leader, Galwa, warns him to stand unless he wants more. Instead of repeating himself, he spits on the ground and orders Jungo to lick it. Staring at the spit, Jungo realizes he is nothing more than their source of amusement. As he regrets being alive, Galwa grows impatient and kicks him in the head, slamming him to the ground. He repeats his order, telling him not to delay. Sitting up, Jungo hears Galwa tell him to cooperate, since resisting is pointless. When Jungo mutters a quiet apology, Galwa coldly interrupts, demanding that he bark instead of speaking. Jungo is shocked, but soon realizes he has no choice but to obey. The class erupts in laughter as Jungo starts barking. Panting like a dog, he hears Galwa command him to stop and lick the spit. Clenching the floor in anger, Jungo obeys. Watching him, the students laugh in disgust. In the food chain, Jungo sees himself as prey beneath someone like Galwa, who rules at the top. At that moment, Galwa pulls out an expired milk carton and pours it over Jungo's head as a twisted reward. He asks if it smells bad and orders him to slurp it off the floor. Without hesitation, Jungo obeys. The class watches in silence, relieved that they aren't the ones being bullied. Covered in blood and milk, Jungo wonders why he is the one suffering. Tears in his eyes, he questions why it had to be him. Beyond the torment, he slowly hurts himself, making small cuts on his wrist. He cries, praying for help from anyone, even the devil himself, to escape this nightmare. Somewhere, an unknown being with glowing eyes watches him. After a while, Galwa's friend Lee Kyung-gun slips an arm around him and says he needs to go to an internet cafe but has no money. Despite being part of Galwa's group, he struggles with an inferiority complex. Jungo apologizes, explaining that he already gave all his money to Galwa. This response angers Kyung-gun, who throws Jungo to the ground, knocking over a desk. Mocking him, Kyung-gun asks if Jungo thinks he is too soft to be refused. Panicking, Jungo kneels and promises to give him as much money as he wants. But Kyung-gun kicks him in the face. Grabbing his hair, he smashes his head into the window. Kyung-gun lights a cigarette and watches Jungo's teary face as he begs for forgiveness. Jungo stops crying when Kyung-gun flicks the cigarette at him, commanding him to put it out. Just as he moves to extinguish it with his forearm, Kyung-gun stops him and orders him to use his tongue instead. Shocked, Jungo hesitates, but Kyung-gun asks if he wants another lesson. Realizing he has no choice, Jungo prepares to obey. The unknown being watches, amused. As Jungo picks up the cigarette, he feels like a complete loser. Staring at Kyung-gun, he silently wishes for happiness, for them to leave him alone. As he sticks out his tongue, he curses them for not understanding his pain. Fear grips him as he realizes they should be the ones suffering, not him. As the cigarette touches his tongue, he silently wishes they could feel his pain, even for a moment. To his shock, Kyung-gun suddenly screams in pain, clutching his mouth. Confused, he tries to stop Jungo, asking what just happened. Jungo, unaware of the situation, runs away. Reaching the school's top floor, he realizes he felt nothing when the cigarette touched his tongue. Sitting down, he wonders why Kyung-gun screamed instead of him. Just then, the unknown being emerges from the floor. It greets Jungo with an outstretched hand, asking if he wants to know the reason behind the incident. Scared, Jungo hesitates. The being tells him to relax, assuring him that it is here to help. Jungo looks at it confused and asks if that's true. The being nods, revealing that it was the one who gave him these powers and promises to free him from his suffering. Introducing itself as the archdevil, Mephistopheles, it watches Jungo's reaction. Still frightened, Jungo listens as Mephistopheles asks if he wants to play a game. Jungo, still confused, asks Mephistopheles why he is here. Mephistopheles calmly replies that Jungo was the one who summoned him. The scene shifts to the school's backyard, where Kyunggun smokes a cigarette, lost in thought about what happened with Jungo. He is puzzled by his injury. He was sure he ordered Jungo to burn his tongue, yet Jungo remained unharmed. Frustrated, he throws his cigarette to the ground and crushes it under his shoe, determined to make Jungo pay. Meanwhile, Jungo, still in shock, asks Mephistopheles about his powers. Mephistopheles explains that Jungo has received a special ability. If he harms himself while thinking of someone he despises, that person will feel the pain instead. However, Jungo himself will remain unscathed. But Mephistopheles warns, such power comes at a cost. Jungo is stunned upon hearing this. Mephistopheles reveals the price. Every time Jungo uses his power, he will lose a portion of his own lifespan. Furious, Jungo grabs Mephistopheles, shouting that it isn't fair. Mephistopheles struggles at first, but then stops resisting, calmly stating that Jungo has only two choices: continue suffering without power or embrace it and become a hunter himself. As the weight of his torment floods his mind, Jungo's hatred burns stronger. He swears never to forgive those who hurt him. With unwavering resolve, he accepts the deal. Mephistopheles snaps his fingers, marking Jungo's forearm with a strange symbol. Jungo stares at it, asking what it means. Mephistopheles explains that it is proof of their contract. The more Jungo uses his power, the more the mark will consume his lifespan. He also adds that Jungo will only possess this power for 30 days. Satisfied, Mephistopheles leaves, telling Jungo to use his power however he wishes and to entertain him in the process. As Mephistopheles vanishes into the ground, Jungo gazes at the mark, a wicked chuckle escaping his lips. He eagerly anticipates his revenge on Galwa. The scene shifts to the classroom. Kyunggun grips Jungo's head, ordering him to meet him on the roof at lunch. Before leaving, he warns Jungo that if he doesn't show up, things will only get worse. During lunch, Jungo makes his way to the rooftop, no longer afraid. His newfound power fills him with confidence. Meanwhile, Kyunggun waits, smirking, thinking Jungo would be too scared to come. He spits on the ground before stepping toward Jungo, demanding to know what trick he pulled the day before. Jungo, smirking darkly, replies that Kyunggun got exactly what he deserved. Angered, Kyunggun kicks him in the stomach without hesitation. Jungo crashes to the ground as Kyunggun cracks his knuckles, watching him coldly. Struggling to stand, Jungo watches as Kyunggun rushes toward him, ready to end him. However, before Kyunggun can reach him, Jungo pulls a knife from his pocket and stabs himself in the thigh. Kyunggun suddenly collapses, clutching his own thigh in agony. He looks up, confused, demanding to know what's happening. Jungo grins wickedly, mockingly asking if Kyunggun is in pain. Kyunggun struggles to get up, realizing the pain is real. But, gathering his strength, he charges at Jungo, tackling him to the ground. The impact causes Jungo to drop his knife. Kyunggun straddles him, choking him, reminding him that he is worthless. Just then, Jungo smirks, whispering that Kyunggun is about to be defeated by someone with no value. Kyunggun is caught off guard. Jungo suddenly sticks out his tongue and bites it down hard. Kyunggun screams in pain, clutching his mouth. But Jungo isn't done. He gets up, picks up the knife, and approaches Kyunggun, speaking calmly about how he once believed in hating the sin, not the sinner. Terrified, Kyunggun begs for mercy, his words slurring as he claims he only followed Galwa's orders. But Jungo shows no pity. He uses his power, stabbing himself in the stomach. Kyunggun screams as he feels the pain instead. Jungo doesn't stop. He continues stabbing himself again and again. Unable to endure the agony, Kyunggun's body gives up. He faints, wetting himself in fear. Jungo stands over him, laughing coldly, saying that Kyunggun should have apologized. Just then, Jungo turns as someone gasps. His classmate, Lee Dongo, stands frozen in fear, staring at Jungo, who holds a bloodied knife, while Kyunggun lies unconscious on the ground.
Lee Dongo, often called Toad, wonders if he did something really bad in a past life to be cursed with such an ugly face and short height in this one. Along with his looks, he is very quiet and shy. Because of this, like Jungo, he has faced endless bullying for all 18 years of his life. Unable to take it anymore, he decides to end everything by jumping off the school building. He stands at the edge, praying to God to make him good-looking and amazing in his next life. Just as he is about to jump, he hears a noise behind him. Curious, he turns around and sees Jungo and Kyunggun fighting. Jungo notices him and looks scared, unsure if Dongo has found out about his powers. Realizing he has no choice but to silence Dongo, Jungo steps toward him. To his shock, Dongo grabs both of his hands and thanks him for saving him. Overjoyed, Dongo jumps excitedly and calls Jungo his savior. Jungo stands there confused, wondering if he really is a savior. The scene shifts to a neighborhood where a huge monster is roaming the streets. A teenage boy with a strange mark on his palm appears. With just one squeeze, he crushes the monster's life, cursing it forever. The boy, Sihyun, then sits on the ground, clenching his fist as the pain from the mark in his hand worsens. As he stays lost in thought, a friend approaches, warning him to be careful with his powers. His friend also feels annoyed seeing Sihyun in a school uniform despite never going to school. As they walk, Sihyun's friend tells him to quit his dangerous job, upset about his fate, as Sihyun faces deadly risks every day. But Sihyun just accepts it as God's punishment and changes the topic, asking his friend about school. His friend excitedly says school starts tomorrow. Annoyed again, Sihyun tells him to avoid bananas at school, further irritating him. Meanwhile, Jungo sits in class, deep in thought, troubled that Dongo now sees him as a hero for the week. His eyes move to the hallway, where Dongo, as always, is being bullied by his classmates. To them, he is nothing but a joke, someone they push around for fun like a frog. Anger rises inside Jungo as he watches, silently saying sorry to Dongo because he knows he can't help. Just then, Yoonhee, one of his classmates, asks if he'll join the school trip as everyone else has already signed up. Feeling nervous, he blushes and says he'll decide by tomorrow. Watching her return to her friends, he thinks about how she is the only one in class who seems to care about him. On top of that, she is pretty, smart, and kind, making her one of the most liked girls in school. Knowing he is an outcast, he feels sure that a girl like her would never notice someone like him. After school, he walks home, wondering if he will ever have a normal life like others. As he walks, he realizes his powers have limits when the pain in his hand becomes unbearable. He looks up after hearing his name. It's Galwa calling him. He remembers how he had ignored him earlier. Fear creeps in as Galwa asks him to come over, and he wonders if he should go or run away. Gathering all his courage, he decides to face him, ready to show that he is not weak. Galwa watches as Jungo walks toward him with confidence, not looking weak. To annoy him, he asks if Jungo finally understands that he is just a loser. As Jungo gets closer, Galwa starts to feel uneasy about Kyunggun's absence. Kyunggun had promised to handle Jungo during lunch, but he hasn't shown up since then. Galwa knows Kyunggun wouldn't just disappear without informing him. On top of that, he is shocked to see Jungo looking fine, without a single bruise. But Jungo pays him no attention, too focused on getting revenge. He feels sure about pulling the knife from his bag when he is close enough. But before he can act, Galwa notices Jungo ignoring him and questions him about it. As Jungo stares at him, Watching him smoke, fear grips him. Before he can react, Galwa kicks him in the stomach, making him tremble. Surprisingly, Jungo stays on his feet, even though it feels like his stomach is about to explode. Ignoring Galwa again, he glances at his bag where his knife is kept. Seeing this, Galwa rushes at Jungo, aiming to punch him. Jungo has no time to dodge, and Galwa's fist lands hard on his stomach. Jungo collapses, coughing and gasping for air. Without mercy, Galwa grabs him by the hair and demands to know where Kyungjun is. But Jungo is too exhausted to answer, so Galwa punches him again in the face. Lying on the ground, Jungo realizes he must use his powers to defeat Galwa. With determination, he reaches into his bag and pulls out a knife, even as Galwa presses his face into the ground with his foot. Galwa is shocked when he sees Jungo take out the knife, only to stab himself in the arm. Both of them freeze in surprise. Jungo's mind races, unable to understand why he is the one bleeding instead of Galwa, even though he has powers from Mephistopheles. Jungo screams in pain as Galwa crushes his cigarette on his cheek. Even as Jungo begs him to stop, Galwa continues to beat him. Galwa's friend watches in silence, feeling relieved that he is on Galwa's side and not his enemy. As Galwa keeps hitting Jungo, a voice suddenly calls out, ordering him to stop. He turns toward the voice and sees Lee Si-hyun standing nearby with his friend. Galwa stands up and asks why Si-hyun is here. When Si-hyun says his name, Galwa warns him not to say it if he wants to stay alive. Si-hyun's friend is unsure about Galwa's behavior, but Si-hyun seems to know a little about him. As Galwa and his friend move toward them, Si-hyun and his friend challenge them, telling them to pick on someone their own size instead of weaker people. Galwa's friend, Jang Sukmu, a judo expert, mocks Si-hyun's friend by calling him a chimp. Si-hyun warns his friend to stay calm, noticing him losing control after being called that. But Sukmu doesn't stop and keeps making fun of him for hiding behind Si-hyun. His words only make Si-hyun's friend angrier, and he warns Sukmu to stop. However, Sukmu keeps teasing him, calling him a chimp again and again. Unable to control himself any longer, Si-hyun's friend snaps and charges at Sukmu, snapping back that Sukmu's mother must be a monkey too. Before Sukmu can react, Si-hyun's friend punches him hard in the chin, demanding he take back his words. As Sukmu stumbles, struggling to recover, Si-hyun's friend taunts him, asking if he is really down after just one hit. He challenges him to get up, saying he is only getting started. Grabbing his neck, Sukmu wonders if the little chimp is really that strong or if he just caught him off guard. As Si-hyun's friend keeps mocking him for being scared and dares him to fight properly, Galwa ignores them and stares at Si-hyun, his eyes burning with anger. Sukmu stands up and cracks his knuckles, challenging Si-hyun's friend to fight. Just as he steps forward, Galwa stops him. Sukmu glares at him, his frustration clear, and asks angrily if Galwa really expects him to back down after being insulted. A chill runs down Sukmu's spine as Galwa firmly tells him to stop again. Sukmu tries to calm him, telling him to relax, but Galwa orders him to follow. As they start to leave, Si-hyun's friend calls them cowards for running away so fast. But Galwa keeps walking, warning Sukmu to stay quiet. He even threatens that the next time they meet, he will end their lives. But Si-hyun's friend dismisses them, not caring at all, unlike Galwa, who seems unsure about Si-hyun's sudden appearance. After Galwa leaves, Si-hyun and his friend focus on helping Jungo. Once they stop the bleeding, Jungo wakes up, looking confused. When he sees Si-hyun and his friend checking on him, fear takes over, as he doesn't seem to recognize them. He quickly gets up, thanking them, sensing that Si-hyun is upset with him even after saving his life. As Jungo stands, Si-hyun notices something strange and asks what's wrong. Before he can learn the truth about Jungo's powers, Jungo suddenly dashes away in a panic. Watching him flee, Si-hyun's friend gets annoyed, expecting a different reaction after helping him. Meanwhile, Mephistopheles watches from a rooftop nearby, casually eating chips as his interest in Jungo's situation grows. Jungo rushes into the same room where he first met Mephistopheles, calling out his name with certainty, convinced he is there. As expected, Mephistopheles appears on the rooftop, asking why Jungo is shouting. Jungo sees him and demands to know why his powers failed against Galwa. Even after cutting his wrist, Galwa was unharmed. Mephistopheles chuckles and casually says he has no idea why. Jungo gets annoyed and tells him to stop joking around. But suddenly, Jungo laughs, mocking Mephistopheles for not being as powerful as he claims. He adds that dealing with a demon like him should be easy. Jungo laughs again, repeating how weak Mephistopheles seems. However, Mephistopheles gets offended, reaches out, and chokes Jungo, lifting him off the ground. As Jungo struggles, Mephisto coldly tells him that he is nothing more than a toy for him. He lets go, and Jungo falls to the ground, coughing. Mephistopheles then reveals that Jungo's powers only work under one condition: hatred. He asks Jungo what he felt while fighting Galwa. As Jungo tries to recall, Mephisto points out that along with hatred, he also felt fear. Jungo clenches his fists, frustrated by this truth. Mephisto, still eating chips, adds that Jungo knows he is pathetic. Even with so much power, he still shook with fear. Jungo angrily tells Mephisto to shut up, insisting that he knows nothing about his painful past. Admitting his own weakness, Jungo sits down and confesses that despite his power, he is always afraid. Mephistopheles asks if Jungo wants to be the last one standing or if he is fine with being a loser. With a final glance, Mephisto walks away, saying he is pretty sure Jungo will stay a loser. As he leaves, Jungo's frustration deepens, making him feel like both a coward and a failure. On the other hand, Sukmu fumes as Galwa made him retreat from Sihian and his friend. He complains, sure that he could have beaten them. Galwa, irritated, lifts Sukmu by the throat, reminding him of his place. He intimidates Sukmu further, asking if he wants to be punished like before. Sukmu quickly apologizes, remembering Galwa's strength, which feels like solid steel. When Galwa lets go, Sukma drops to the floor coughing. Galwa warns him never to question his orders again. Sukmu agrees, already thinking about getting back at Sihian's chimp friend if they meet again. Both flinch at the sound of Sukma's phone ringing. As Sukmu answers, his expression changes to shock as he questions the caller. Galwa, now serious, watches him closely as Sukmu demands details about the situation. Reaching the school rooftop, Sukmu pressures his friend for answers. But his friend looks confused, unsure why Kyunggun is lying unconscious on the floor. Sukma glances at Kyunggun, and his friend nervously asks what they should do. Galwa, calmly smoking, orders them to pick up the body. As they do, Galwa flicks his cigarette at Kyunggun, now thinking of him as a failure, the burning tip landing in the puddle of Kyunggun's urine. The news spreads fast after Kyunggun fails to show up at school the next day, with rumors saying he has fallen into a coma for unknown reasons. Whispers fill the halls, with some students guessing that a rival gang attacked Galwa's group to take control of the school. Meanwhile, a few boys talk about using this as a chance to take Galwa's spot as the top gang in school. Galwa soon storms into the room, eyes blazing with anger, and starts beating up the students who act like Kyunggun's condition doesn't matter. Meanwhile, Jungo listens to his classmates' gossip about Kyunggun, laughing and mocking him, believing he got what he deserved. The teacher enters, silencing them with a sharp command. After ordering them to be quiet, he announces the arrival of a new student. The girls get excited, asking if the new student is handsome. After replying that the boy looks normal, the teacher calls him in. When the new student walks in, Jungo freezes in shock. Jungo is caught off guard when he sees Sihian's friend enter the classroom. The new student introduces himself as Weejino, saying that he loves bananas but dislikes being called a monkey. As he greets everyone, Jino notices Jungo sitting at the back and excitedly waves at him, shouting his hello. Jungo quickly turns away, uneasy, knowing Jino will be in danger if people find out they know each other. As the class picks up on their connection, whispers spread fast. Students murmur that Jino is in trouble now that he is linked to Jungo. Even the girls, who had shown some interest in Jino, now lose interest because of his bond with Jungo. Jino soon learns Jungo's name, as the entire class starts saying it, assuming they are friends. As the teacher asks everyone to prepare for the first lesson, Jino walks up to Jungo's desk, asking why he ran away that day. The class watches closely, quickly realizing how familiar they seem, and guessing that Jino will soon regret it. Jino is shocked when Jungo tells him to stay away. Just then, Sukmo, passing through the hallway, hears Jino's loud voice and sees him talking to Jungo. As he watches, Jino asks Jungo why he wants him to avoid him. Wanting to get revenge, Sukmo rushes at him. But Jino senses danger and, in a quick motion, pushes Jungo aside to protect him, taking Sukmo's hit instead. Jungo understands Jino's intention as he sees him crash into the desk. Sukmo glares at him with rage, saying his day is already ruined by the endless rumors. As Jino meets his gaze, Sukmo warns him not to look at him. Just then, Jino charges at Sukmo, but Sukmo is sure he won't fall for the same trick again. He lunges forward, trying to grab him, but Jino's quick movements let him easily dodge. Sukmo stumbles forward, and Jino mocks him, saying he will defeat him again. News of the fight spreads quickly, drawing students from other classes. As they watch Jino skillfully avoid all of Sukmo's attacks, Sukmo's frustration increases. He tries again to land a hit, but Jino keeps dodging, his speed making Sukmo look helpless. Sukmo grows more annoyed as the crowd whispers about how weak he looks against Jino, who dodges every strike with ease. Furious, Sukmo charges forward again, determined to hit him. But instead of avoiding this time, Jino punches Sukmo in the face, knocking him down. Sukmo's legs shake as he collapses, and Jino smirks, pointing out that this is the second time he has made Sukmo fall. As Sukmo struggles to stand, he claims Jino's punch was weak and just luck. But his body fails him, leaving both the students and himself shocked. Jino turns away, saying that the hit to Sukmo's jaw will keep him down for a while. Sukmo seethes with anger as he hears the students whispering, calling him weak. Furious, he stands up and glares at the crowd, warning them to shut up or fight him if they dare. Filled with rage, he charges at Jino again, hoping to bring him down with him. But to his shock, Jino dodges easily once more and uses Sukmo's own force against him, landing a sharp kick to his face. As Jino wins the fight, the crowd falls silent, stunned that he actually defeated Sukmo. Jungo is amazed, realizing how strong Jino is despite them being the same size. He finally understands that size has nothing to do with winning. Jino grins and calls him a fatso, saying that the stronger one always comes out on top. After school, Sukmo stands on the terrace, angrily wondering how he could have lost to Jino. His friends try to calm him, but he only grows angrier, punching the wall. His friends snap at the students watching, telling them to leave since there is nothing to see. Ignoring them, Sukmo fumes, knowing that losing to that monkey was too embarrassing in front of everyone. As he keeps punching, he realizes the fight started because of Jungo and blames him for the loss. He glares at the wall, holding Jungo responsible for everything that happened. Without a second thought, he decides to take revenge and beat him up. When his friends call his name, Sukmo laughs and looks at them, inviting them to join him for some fun in the evening. As they exchange confused looks, he asks if Jungo takes comic drawing classes after school. One of them nods, still unsure of what Sukmo is planning. Meanwhile, Jungo quietly leaves school and walks alone on the road. He suddenly stops when Jino calls out to him. Jungo tells him to stop following, but Jino refuses, saying that he is the only person he knows at school. Feeling uneasy, Jungo tries to push him away, insisting that the fight was his fault. Frustrated, Jino tells him to stop acting like an outcast and to see himself as equal to others. As Jungo tries to leave, Jino suddenly notices a mark on his hand. Shocked, he remembers seeing the same mark on Seihin. He quickly grabs Jungo's arm, wanting a closer look. But Jungo pulls away, scared that Jino might find out the truth about his deal with the devil. Even with a short glance, Jino grows uneasy and questions him about the mark. Before he can continue, Jungo dashes away, leaving him confused. As Jino keeps calling after him, he realizes that Jungo is scared and wonders if the mark he just saw is really the same as Seihin's. A few hours later, Jungo reaches his comic academy, feeling restless as he draws. His teacher, Mr. Huang, notices his discomfort and watches him closely. When class ends and the students leave, Jungo stays behind. Seeing a chance for a private talk, Mr. Huang approaches him just as he starts packing his things. He gently asks if something is wrong, but Jungo, confused, insists that everything is fine. Mr. Huang looks at his drawing and says that art does not lie. It is clear that Jungo is tense. As he keeps asking, Jungo feels pressured and realizes he has no choice but to tell the truth. As he explains everything, his teacher listens at first but then bursts into laughter, dismissing it as a stress-induced imagination. Angry, Jungo yells, insisting that he is serious and that everything he said is real. He quickly unbuttons his sleeves, determined to prove his words. Rolling them up, he points to his forearm, saying that the mark on his hand is what gives him power. But Mr. Huang looks confused and tells him there is no mark, leaving Jungo puzzled. Wondering if normal people cannot see it, he remembers how Jino noticed it after school. Mr. Huang tells him to stop thinking about such things and shares that he, too, was badly bullied in school. He admits that it was so terrible he often felt like he could not take it anymore. Looking up at the sky, he says he used to wonder why he was always the one getting bullied. Jungo, disappointed, quickly asks what he did to those bullies, hoping to get an answer for his next step. Mr. Huang smiles softly and says that he forgave them. Placing a reassuring hand on Jungo's shoulder, he admits it took him a long time to do that. He then looks at Jungo and calmly asks what kind of revenge he is planning, since he had mentioned it earlier. As Jungo stays quiet, Mr. Huang urges him to think carefully. He then gestures to Jungo's drawings, pointing out that his skills are getting better every day and that soon, he will be even better than his teacher. After a while, Jungo leaves the classroom with a sigh, still thinking about Mr. Huang's choice to forgive his bullies. As he walks down the road, he wonders if he is wrong for wanting revenge. Just then, he notices a stranger following him, making him uneasy. Glancing back, he grows anxious, unsure if the man is really following him or just going the same way. But as time passes, he realizes the man is still behind him. Feeling scared, Jungo starts running, now sure that the man is after him. As he sprints, he wonders who the man is. When the stranger suddenly speeds up, Jungo takes a sharp turn and keeps running, even though he is exhausted. Moments later, he stops to catch his breath. Looking behind, he sees no one and assumes the man has given up. Meanwhile, the pursuer also turns the corner, but finds that Jungo has disappeared. Jungo, too tired to run anymore, hides nearby. Peeking at the road, he sighs in relief, thinking he lost him. But before he can react, the man suddenly appears from behind and forcefully grabs him, knocking him out. Moments later, Jungo opens his eyes and finds himself tied up inside a warehouse. A voice orders him to wake up, saying this is not his bed at home. Looking up, he panics upon realizing that the man in front of him is Sukmu. As Sukma comments that it took him long enough to wake up, he extends his arm, holding Jungo's drawing kit. Jungo becomes scared and tries to defend himself, but before he can speak, another gang member kicks him in the back, making him fall. Sukmu walks closer, saying the kit must be important since Jungo is trying so hard to protect it. Opening the kit, he glances at the drawing and praises Jungo for his skill. Then, pointing at a girl in the painting, he asks if she is his mother. Jungo fearfully looks at Sukmu as he says he wants to add some finishing touches. Hearing this, Jungo becomes furious and yells at him, demanding he give the drawing back and not touch it. But Sukmu just smirks and asks if Jungo really thinks he is in any position to give orders. He tells his gang to teach Jungo a lesson while he improves the drawing. As the gang members approach, Jungo panics. One of them picks up a bat and smashes it against his face. They continue hitting him, on his stomach, legs, and face, until blood drips from his mouth. Finally, they tear Jungo's clothes and laugh at him cruelly. With the little energy he has left, Jungo begs Sukmu not to touch the drawing and to give it back. Sukmu finally decides to return it, but suddenly rips the page apart. Jungo is frozen in shock. Sukmu throws the torn pieces at him, saying he gave it back. Enraged, Jungo rushes at him, but before he can reach, one of Sukma's friends steps in and kicks him down. As Jungo falls, Sukma mocks him, telling him to calm down since the drawing was just a piece of paper. Then, he calls Jungo's mother a nasty name, making Jungo even angrier. Jungo recalls Mr. Huang's words and silently apologizes to him, saying he cannot hold back anymore. As Sukmu starts to walk away, Jungo stands up, releasing a massive burst of energy around him, knocking down some of the gang members. Sukmu, who was about to light a cigarette, turns in shock, realizing Jungo has broken free from his ropes. Seeing Jungo's furious glare, Sukmu feels fear, wondering how he knocked out 2 of his men. Just then, Jungo extends his arm, and a knife appears in his hand. As he slowly steps forward, Sukma tries to act unbothered, saying he will not be scared just because of a knife. He then asks if Jungo really plans to stab him. Without a word, Jungo swings the knife, cutting across his own body. Sukma screams in pain as he falls, realizing his upper body is hurting, though Jungo was the one who got cut. Jungo moves closer. Sukma looks up and begs him to stay away. But Jungo remains silent, still apologizing to Mr. Huang. Pointing the knife at Sukmu, he thinks to himself that he cannot forgive them the way Mr. Huang forgave his bullies.